Police Stakeholders Committee. And before I start, I will read the statement that we've been provided. As chair of the Exeter Police Stakeholders Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. On January 21st, 2021, public notice of this meeting was posted on the Exeter Town website and on the bulletin board of the town offices at 10 Front Street. As provided in that public notice, the public may access the meeting online and via phone. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting and who that person is. Son, daughter, spouse, etc. This is required under the right to know law. And I'll start with Elliot Berkowitz. Is Elliot here? I didn't see Elliot, actually. Sorry to say. Okay, let me just go down my list. Emily Heath.
Here, and I'm in the room alone.
Thank you. Harry King.
Yes, good morning or afternoon.
Matt Carboni.
I'm here. My wife and child are in the house, but not in the room.
Okay. Darius Thompson. I saw you. I thought I saw him. Maybe I didn't. Tanisha Johnson. Oh, there you are, Darius. Anyone? Are you?
I'm here.
Just Sylvie. I'm by myself with Sylvie.
And Tanisha, you're by yourself?
I'm here by myself. My daughter is around.
Very good.
With my daughter, so.
Excellent. And Molly Cowan.
Hey, everybody. I'm here.
Daryl Brown.
I'm here. I'm alone.
Katie Adams.
I'm here alone in the room.
Did I miss anybody? Okay, so that's everybody so far. If anybody else join, I know that I know Molly mentioned this earlier, and Alexis Simpson had emailed me earlier, and she may make it late, but likely will not be here for the better part of the meeting, which the goal is to be over by 4:00. So if all goes well, that's where we'll be. So in the spirit of that, is there anyone willing to take some minutes today for us in her absence? And if not, if it's too complicated, certainly I can just go back and look at the tape and, hit the highlights on it. But if someone is willing to take some minutes today, that would be appreciated.
I'll take some minutes for you, Ian.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Great. Okay. So what I'd like to do to start, before we get into approving the minutes, just wanted to talk real briefly about the schedule, et cetera. When we started this, we wanted to hit the ground running in terms of getting the survey out and this and that. We're going to finish that up today. But realizing, we're meeting twice a month, it's been a lot. Your participation has been amazing. And, but I realize it's quite a bit. And this is a new committee, so we weren't sure what was going to be the best way to approach it. So going forward, if we're at a point where we think we can meet once a month, I'm happy to do that. I wanted to throw that out as a quick discussion point, and just get this sort of housekeeping off the table before we get into the meeting. And again, these past meetings have been a little bit longer based on the topics. And I don't know as we'll have to do that going forward. Now, that being said, if you wait and go once a month, your meeting might go a little longer. So I just wanted to hear a little bit from the group if you have some thoughts on that, just in terms of how we want to run this, because we're still new enough into it that I certainly welcome your feedback. Does anybody want to speak to that topic? Use your raise hand function if you would. Just all right, Matt, go ahead.
Whatever works best for you, Ian. I mean, some months you may want to work with us twice, and some months you may say it's fine for once a month. Whatever you and Darius decide is fine with me.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I thought about that too. I thought we can set it up for monthly, and if we find that we need another meeting for some reason, there's something going on that requires that, I think the committee is flexible enough. And again, I just wanted to hear thoughts from anyone if that's better or worse. Certainly the goal will be to keep the meetings, a little more crisp than they've been. I think we've all been trying to get our bearings on it, frankly, to what our mission is. So I just want to make sure I'm being sensitive to the group. Does anyone else have any comments on that? I do want to let you, Daryl.
Just a question that might help. It's is there an end deliverable the group is working towards?
Yes, the end deliverable is to go through the 5 goals. And so what we were going to do was basically then make each month would be a goal. So in other words, we're going to finish up goal 1 today. So February would be goal 2, March would be goal 3. I mean, it sounds aggressive, but that to me would be kind of one way to do it. And we had thought originally we just might need a little more time, but some goals may take less time than others.
Would it make sense to have the monthly and then split up into working groups if it required it for any given month?
Yep. I think that's a good idea. Katie has her hand raised.
I was just going to say, I wonder if we should see how we do getting our meetings down to an hour before we cut half the meetings, just because we might end up with some really long ones if we go to once a month before we've sort of condensed our meeting time.
Yep, I think that's a good point, because that's my concern, that if you don't meet often, then you meet longer. I mean, it's sort of by the nature of it. And otherwise, as Daryl mentioned, then you sort of end up where I hate the term assignments, but you sort of end up assigning projects or assigning parts of work for people and come back and then report. And then a month later, you can sort of lose. This committee isn't like a lot of other committees. I think you can sort of lose your focus if you go too long. But again, the compromise could be make sure it's an hour and you meet every other week and that's it. You just stop and move to the next. Emily.
I was just going to say, for me, it's okay to meet more often, just as long as we have kind of a time frame of knowing these will only go for an hour, just because it's easier to arrange a schedule, kind of knowing in that way versus we'll meet every couple of weeks, but we don't know how long it'll go, or we'll meet once a month, but we don't know how long.
Right. Fair enough. Tanisha.
I was going to say, just for me, my preference would be monthly. I know I have a lot of commitments and my work schedule is pretty hectic during the day. So bi-weekly commitment is a lot to take on. But if we were to really commit to an hour and ended at an hour, I think last time we met, it was almost 2 hours, which was a lot. I mean, like, we literally need to commit to the hour and then we have to move on. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'd prefer monthly, but if we were doing bi-weekly, an hour tops.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments on? No, this is great feedback. This is fabulous feedback, because I think that's the idea is that we stay enthused and focused on the tasks, and I don't want this to become any kind of drudgery for anybody, especially we have a lot of staff involved as well, and it's time out of their day, and everyone is taking time out of their day. I appreciate that. So I am certainly fine with the notion of keeping a meeting to an hour. In fact, I don't know if Molly Cowan was on the Board of Selectmen when I was there, but I once said to the chair, I'd commit to meeting at the select board meetings if they could guarantee they would keep them 2 hours. But that just never happened. So in any event, why don't we try that? I think we'll keep the schedule we have. Again, wishes of the board, I don't know if we need to take it to a vote. We can if we need to, but if you want to continue every other week at an hour, and then there's always that option where you can say, hey, we don't need to meet next week. You know what I mean? The next time. And this is not cast in stone. I don't want anyone to think that it was. If that sounds like a fair enough, because in any event, I wanted to make sure everybody came to the February 9th meeting, because we do have Dennis Walker scheduled, and he's with Seacoast Mental Health, and I think he's going to be awesome for us to hear. So in any event, I want to hold that meeting. And then if we want to continue on the bi-weekly, does that work for you, Chief? I haven't even mentioned this to the Chief, and we had talked offline, but I certainly would like to hear what he has to say on that.
Yes, that works great. And there's still that flexibility in there. So if we start creeping up towards the hour, we'll just cut it short and we'll move that for the next meeting. That's all. Exactly.
That's I am totally on board with that if that works for everybody else. Great. And I appreciate everybody's input. It's really helpful.
Raising my hand.
Yes, Darius.
So two things. Harry, did you have anything to add or recommend or suggest?
Not at this moment.
Okay. So with that, I think that we should strive to say the meetings will be an hour, but we'll actually have a pulse check at 45 minutes to see where we are so that we can start to wrap things up or make that decision. And if we need to meet longer, we know that the topic's going to be longer, then we should make that ahead of time as much as possible. And if we need to cut back or cancel meeting, then we can.
Yep, I think it's a great idea. Okay, very good. Very good. I appreciate everyone. We'll keep the schedule as it is, and we'll keep it to an hour. And that's a great suggestion, Darius. I like that a lot. All right, so let's move on to approval of the minutes. Did anyone have any edits or changes to the minutes as they were drafted? And if I don't see anyone, so I would look for a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. All those in favor, and I will call the roll. Matt Carboni?
I approve. Aye.
Katie Adams?
Yes.
Harry King?
Yeah.
Emily Heath?
Aye.
Darius Thompson?
Aye.
Tanisha Johnson?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Okay, so that's all approved. Very good. Thank you. Okay, now back to the exciting part. I do have Bob Glowacki. He is running our meeting today. He's hosting the meeting for us, but he also has the link, as you know, to the survey. And as I mentioned in the email, hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at it. And if there's anything you have a question or concern about, certainly let's raise it now. But other than that, if this is going to be close to being good to go, we can talk to Bob. We can talk among ourselves about how best to get the message out there. And I know Bob had some good ideas, and we can talk about those and see how we can do this, get this out to the public. Do I see a hand? Katie. Is your hand?
Yes. Yeah, I had two quick things that I observed. One is in question 12, it says in your own works, but I think that should be in your own words. I think that's just a typo.
Excellent.
And then the other thing was in question 4 about race and ethnicity. Do we just want to make it so that people can select more than one? Because that way, people who have a mix of background that they identify with, they can use their own judgment of how they want to select it. And that I know we can do it because there's another question where you can select multiple answers.
Right. That's not a bad idea. Any other comments on that? That's Katie's suggestion? Because my only question on that one was, I know we did it alphabetically, but I began to think that the more than one should be at the bottom, even though that's not alphabetical, but that's because I don't want someone to miss something.
I think that what Katie's saying makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And we can do it logistically. And I know, Bob, you're in the background. Can we do that on that question?
That's no problem. I mean, it's just, you may get people who only click more than one, and then people who actually click, more than one option. So I don't know how you want to chop that up when you guys look at this data, but I'm sure you can make sense of it.
Okay.
Should we just remove the more than one option if they can select more than one, and then just modify the question so it says select all that apply?
Does that work? I think that
I'd leave that up to you guys. It works technically for sure.
Okay. My question is on the technical end. Wishes of the board is. You can feel free to nod your heads or do this.
That's fine.
Okay, good. Okay, let's do that. Great catch on the typo. Bob was talking to me earlier, and he can flesh out the reasoning behind this. The required versus non-required. And Bob, you can communicate it to the board better than I can, because what you said actually made sense. And it's not about mandating a question. It's more about making sure that they all get answered. So.
Yeah, I guess, right now, none of the questions are required at all. So, someone could just answer one question and submit. If you guys think, that wouldn't be a problem. You could leave it as is. The benefit, I guess, to requiring certain questions, and I wouldn't require the question we just talked about, or question number 3 or 2 for that matter, if you wanted to, is just that they won't accidentally submit it without filling in a couple questions, because maybe they, accidentally skip something because they're scrolling on their phone or wherever they're filling this out. So I wouldn't require any of the questions that you put in text answers. You could leave those open because maybe people don't want to take the time to write, a couple sentences. But so other questions you could leave like that. But yeah, I think it just would help to make sure people don't skip a question if you guys really want them to, fill this out fully. But it's not going to make or break it, Most likely they'd fill it out either way, but this way you kind of just make sure that they do it.
Any comments from the board on that? Molly.
Sorry, I had a question. I know we talked about this at length last time, but I'm just going to flag it again. When we are asking for race or ethnicity, which I imagine we will require the answer, and I know that there's a place where you can say you prefer not to answer, but then we ask for the street name, and I'm wondering if that is too identifiable and will depress turnout from people of color who might not, if they're the only person on their street, then it's clearly that's the person they are. So I want to figure out if that's going to suppress opinions and people filling out the survey.
No, it's a fair question.
From a technical point of view, you could also, any of these questions you can, it's not like all or nothing. So it's each question you can be required or not required. So.
No, I know. I understand that. So maybe then we say that we don't require either of those, but to require both of them would seem to be a little too identifiable for people who want to submit this anonymously.
Deputy Chief Monk? And then Matt.
To Molly's point, I think that question did spark my interest as well. What are we looking to gain from that metric, putting the street name? Because from my perspective, and I don't know, for me, are we looking to see what type of neighborhood the person responding is from? Do you see what I'm saying? So could we put apartment complex, condo, single family home, multifamily home? Mm-hmm. I guess I'm just wondering what data are we hoping to gain from that? Because if, I don't know what the turnout is, say we get like 20% turnout, response, it's just going to have a bunch of street names on it. And is that getting us any information? Are we more interested in the type of residence of the person that's responding? I'm just throwing that out there. What would be more useful information for us?
That's a good question, because now I'm trying to remember why it was relevant. I thought it was relevant at one point. Emily?
I think we may have had it on there to confirm that someone was a resident of Exeter.
Yeah, I think it was part of it. It was neighborhood, right? It was sort of.
Yeah, but there's probably another way to do it.
Yeah.
So
Matt?
So what I was thinking when I read 5 and I had a question about 5, we can make them generalized neighborhoods or you're asking above where they work or go to school or if they go to school or work here. It's almost like that question should be if you live, work, or go to school in Exeter, select the appropriate area in town or street name associated. Because what I would like to see is people from the academy, from the high school, and from Portsmouth Ave and the hospital. Our population almost doubles in town during the day. So I would hope that people that come to town to work, buy things from businesses, frequent the town as visitors, I would like to know where they come, what they're associated with. So not only does it bring us back to a residential neighborhood, which the initial question 5 brings us to, but I would like to know we got 20 respondents from the hospital or, 20 respondents from Industrial Drive or away. You know what I mean? What do you think, Darius? You had your hand up.
Alexis and Darius, go ahead.
A couple of things. One, we decided not to go with specific neighborhoods because we're trying to segment where not everybody knows that they live on West Exeter, East Exeter, or whatever. But if they put the street that they live on, they don't have to provide the address, but at least have a general location geographically of where they are in the town of Exeter. So if we then analyze that data later, we can say, all right, we got respondents from this street or that street, and we can cross-reference that with anything that we may have had either good experiences or bad experiences relative to one area. We can then you can look at that further. It's not trying to identify anybody specifically that they live at X address on this street. It's more intended to give us an indication of where they live in Exeter versus trying to come up with predetermined areas that we think are important. We'd rather hear from our residents. So I believe that's what the intent was.
Before I go to you, Alexis, I see your hand is raised. I just want to go back to Deputy Chief Monk to see if that his help. Does that make sense? Does that seem logical? What we're asking, what they're talking about?
Yeah, sure. And again, I'm just an observer, kind of outside observer as this process is going, but that was a question that I had about specifically why we were asking for street names. And I wasn't even thinking about, Molly's point is being able to actually identify somebody, because I do think this being anonymous is an important way to get more participation from the public, as well as, some honest answers.
Right. Oh, good. Okay, good. Alexis, welcome. You are here. How awesome.
Hi. Yeah, my hearing ended pretty early. Thank you. I was remembering back to when we started this committee. I remember Selectman Brown, and maybe you're going to speak about this. You were interested in differences in policing based in socioeconomic status, perhaps, and is there a way that we could parse that out in the town? And I think we were wondering if maybe residents would street name might get at that, but I don't know if there's another way to collect that data, because I agree that if we have too much identifying data, then we lose a lot of people because of losing anonymity that we want to hear from. So that's not a solution, just as much as a little bit of the history that I'm remembering.
Did you want to speak to that, Daryl? Or Katie, your hand is raised, and then or Daryl. Go ahead, Daryl.
So I just wanted to support what Deputy Chief was saying, because an address can be very classist, where it's like, oh, here's an address, so here's a residence, and someone's experience with the police at an address may involve neighbors and not them. So it's really important to know, okay, I think the outcome that we get from that that data, that's self-identifying condo, apartment complex, multi-residential, we can, with that combined with or without the address, because we're concerned about policing, your experience with policing, and it doesn't have to be a direct experience, and it's easier, it's a bigger blind spot for middle-class people to think, oh, this is your direct experience with policing at or near your residence, when high-density spaces can have a lot different. So I think Deputy Chief's point is very important, to have people self-identify their style of residence.
Katie, and then we'll go back.
Do you want to just add the question rather than replace? We could, if we're interested in street name, we could keep that and just add what type of residence with the multiple choice.
I'm trying to remember how that actually looked. Because at one point we talked about having a drop down with street names, but then I thought we went away from that.
I think we were going to go with the drop down. I have yet to receive a list of street names. So once I get that, I can just pop that in. So, but yeah, we could add a question, or not my place, but I think the previous one of the gentlemen who said, because this is referring to people who only live in Exeter, that he made a comment about we could rephrase it to, if you live, work, or, go to school, what area or town are you in while in Exeter? I don't know how to best phrase that, but if you wanted to kind of, because then you'd only get people who live in town answering that question, unless you open it up more.
Did we start this by saying, is it required? Is this, because this doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's what we were, which questions should be required and which one shouldn't, or should all of them be not required, or that's kind of.
And that is totally going to be up to this committee to take a vote on. I think if what we want required, what we don't. I don't want to make a huge deal out of it, but I think it was certain that we thought we wouldn't.
My personal opinion is that we should not require any answers to this survey. If there's a way after you click submit to get a little reminder saying like, oh, you forgot this question or something like that, like I've sometimes seen on other surveys, just in case, as Bob says, like people just forget something, maybe that would be good. But there's just a lot of sensitive topics in here. I would hate for anyone to feel put off if they see something required and then kind of fail.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
So the whole thing is that this is not going to be a scientific survey where that we can do a lot of, that part. It's more a survey to get honest answers and information from residents and those that either live or work in Exeter. So I think that if we were to provide them a location or a list of all the street names in Exeter, they would select the street they live on. If they wanted to add a type of classification of saying, is it a home, apartment, or a condo, right? 3 options: home, apartment, condo, whatever it is. That way we at least know we could have those 2 data points to know. If you don't want to have the type of home or structure, then we can let that aside for now and then stick with the street address. That we know that this is a resident who responded. Actually, we don't need to know where they live, but we can confirm to the best of our survey that the respondent at least indicated that they live in Exeter, and that we got respondents from certain sections of town or all parts of town. I think that would be better than trying to continue to talk for, if we're trying to stick to an hour, continue to talk and try to rehash and add more questions and not get to the point of, are we at a stage where this is good enough for what we want to accomplish? Let's review and approve that. Or if we need to, then make the motions, let's vote, let's lock it down so that the end result at 45 minutes before we to the hour, that we're at a point where we can say this is good to go by everybody agrees on it on the committee. That's all.
Well, I think Katie nailed it by, if we make none of them required, there we are. If that way they can answer, I think that answers it. Make every question optional, basically.
I think that's important. It speaks to the point of this. Policing is it's accountable to the citizens, and so to make the citizens then accountable to what they want to say, depending on what their experience has been, it's like a gentle reminder is great, but the point here is willingness and opt-in.
So were there any other questions about the survey? Because otherwise I'll look for a motion to approve the survey as written. Matt.
I would still like to make 5 also include work or school in town. If you live, work, or go to school in Exeter, please select the appropriate area you are associated in town. Or please select the appropriate area of town where you are associated. Katie, help me out. You're the editor there. But I mean, I think it's actually, I think it's important to identify the areas of, where people don't necessarily live in town. 50% of the people in town during the day don't live here. Am I overestimating that, Chief?
In the survey, what are we really trying to get at here?
Right. The question is it relevant?
Right. And what are we trying to get at in the survey is what Harry was asking. We're just trying to identify the locations of where a respondent may have had a good, bad, indifferent experience in providing their feedback. That's what we're trying to ask of our citizens. Those that either live or work in Exeter. So if the question needs to be to append to, if you live or work in Exeter, please identify the street in which you live, work, or, in Exeter. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Live, work, or go to school in Exeter. Because SAU 16, people are traveling to Blue Hawk Drive, to Lincoln Street, to Main Street, to the Academy, Portsmouth Ave for work or whatnot. I think it should be more than just residents. It's my opinion.
Okay.
So I guess for the sake of the whole committee, we just need to see how, so it's sort of a two-part question. That's what you're looking for, Matt, for it to be.
Well, I mean, you can have the drop down.
Yeah. People
can also conceal, to Daryl's point and Molly's point. Let's just say I didn't want to put down that I live in Exeter Farms because I thought it would identify too close to where I live and someone would judge me. Heck, I could just click Hampton Road, It doesn't prohibit me from clicking Hampton Road. Right. I could click Main Street. I work at the Academy, It's my choice where I click.
Right.
No one's going to go back out and hunt somebody down for clicking the wrong thing. If they work on Portsmouth Ave but live in another part of town, they may just click Portsmouth Ave, But if that question should include, and Katie, please help me rephrase it, but if you live, work, or go to school in Exeter, please select the appropriate location associated with this activity.
You might want something that says, something along the lines of, on what street do you spend most of your time? Because there are probably a lot of people who work here and live here and go to school here who might not know what to select. So, you just want to say what street, or, on what street are you most frequently in Exeter? Something like that.
I want to recognize Tanisha. She's got her hand up.
Not to extend this conversation any further, but almost to want to throw a wrench into things, into what Matt said, what's to prevent someone to say, yes, I work here, I live here, and then just pick a street. And if that's the case, then what's the point of even having this question on the survey? Why can't we just write, do you live, work, play, whatever you do here in Exeter, yes or no, and then just leave it at that and move on? Just my thought.
That's above in question one.
We have you're right. That's the current, right?
That's question.
But can we just make a decision and say, are we including street names or not, and then move on and just say live, work, play, or whatever the language is,
So from a community policing standpoint, we're looking for the respondents for those that live in the community and those that work in the community. But primarily, it's the residents that live in this community that we're looking for I believe primarily, because all of us all live in Exeter that are on the committee. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, to be, yes.
So to me, the most important thing is, I think the way the question is written, number 5, if you live in Exeter, would you please select the street name where you reside? That's pretty straightforward. If someone wants to add and provide more information, they can. I think there's an opportunity to do so at the very end, if I'm not mistaken. Any final thoughts you'd like to share? They can fill that in.
And they also don't have to answer the question.
Right. They don't have to answer the question. And again, I think we've, not to keep hammering this home, but if we continue to have discussions about changing the question, we're not going to get to a point where we have a survey that we all agree upon. At some point we will, but at the beginning of the meeting, we all agreed that we want to try to keep this to an hour. We're at 34 minutes after the hour. So just want to be aware of that. I'm more than happy to have the discussion and go longer. That's fine. But I just wanted to kind of reinforce that our goal was to get a survey out. Is it going to be a perfect survey? No. We'll have everything that we want to ask? No. But does it have enough of the things that we're looking to get information on, to glean some insights on, and to actually move forward some recommendations as part of what we're tasked to do? I believe it does. That's all.
Anyone? I'm looking for a motion to approve this survey. I'll be very blunt. I think we've spent a lot of time on it. We need to move on to the next. Because
I'll make a motion to approve the survey.
Tanisha?
I'll make a motion to approve the survey.
Do I hear a second? Second by Alexis. And discussion. So moved, seconded. Now we have discussion. If there's any discussion, this is one last chance to say something.
The only thing I have to say is that we did make a couple requests to add one or two things to make the spell check. That's not just make sure we document that's done. The only thing that I have relative to the survey before we approve it is to make certain that this is, Bob, I'm going to reach out to you, that anybody that needs assistive technology, that there's alt text behind this that they can use with a screen reader. Basically, I'm looking for 508 compliance, such that if someone needs to have a screen reader read everything to them, there should be alt text behind every question of what they're selecting. And then the last piece is that I hope that each survey will have a unique counter so that we don't get duplicates. So we know that each survey is unique in its response. We don't need to know where it came from, but we have a unique count of all the surveys.
I can't speak to the accessibility thing. I think I can look into that. I think all that you could do with that is if there were images and drawings or the graphs with Google Forms, you could add alt text, but not necessarily to the questions. So I'd have to look into that. And the charts, I'm not sure how that would work out, to be honest. But I could, look into that. In terms of the unique responses, I mean, there's a timestamp, and that's basically as unique as we can get. But someone could go into this if they wanted and submit 100 times. That's
fine, as long as the timestamp's unique. And then the last part of the accessibility is that will we have this available as a printed document that somebody that does not have a phone, that does not have technology, that they can actually get a printed copy of this and can be able to return that to us? Or not to us, but return to either the police station or the town office that we collect them.
Well, that's a question for the committee, actually, because I think we talked about that a while ago, which I agree. We have to. And I thought, go ahead, Alexis.
I think we said a couple of meetings ago we would have it available by paper in a couple of places, but I wonder if we should have that discussion when we have discussion about how we're going to disseminate it. Right. Unless you want it to be part of the motion, to amend the motion to include that.
Nope, that was the only part of the discussion. I'm okay with the motion as is. I don't have any questions relative to the motion and any other changes.
So is a motion on the table that you want to accept the survey? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but somewhat as amended today. With that, that's the motion. Again, I'm the chair. I shouldn't make the motion. But I think that's what you're trying to say is, if you want to vote to amend that motion, just so it says the survey as of today as amended. Just to be completely accurate.
I think so. Who had the motion originally? Was it Matt or no?
Anisha had the motion.
Anisha, yes. So would you like to amend that?
That's why I put you on the spot. Just if you want to rephrase your, this is the tedious part, but you just want to get it right.
So motion to accept the survey with the amendments stated. Let's go with that.
Do we have a second?
Okay. Second.
Okay. Now, all those in favor, I will call the roll. Matt Carboni.
Aye.
Katie Adams.
Aye.
Harry King.
Yes.
Alexis Simpson.
Yes.
Emily Heath.
Aye.
Darius Thompson.
Aye.
Tanisha Johnson.
Aye.
Chair says aye. That's all unanimous. So we have a survey. Excellent. And now the next part is the most important. Well, as important is avenues of distribution. And I think we also talked about, and Bob can help us with this, the QR. I'm going to say. Code. Thank you. Code. And Bob, Bob and I were chatting a little bit before the meeting started, just as in ways to disseminate this. And I'd like him to, if he wouldn't mind, just sharing quickly with everyone what he shared with me, different things, the way they did it with the communications committee, just some of the ideas he had that I think might help us, and then we can go from there with that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we primarily we launched it on like election day back in November, so that we had 2 posters, big posters out for people to fill it out in line. So they could just scan the QR code with their phone camera and be taken directly to the survey and fill it out and submit right there. And I think with that we got I want to say like a third of our responses were just from that first day on election day. So I'd like to think they were the people who were waiting in lines and saw the poster. But we also we put the poster in 2 places in the town offices. It's obviously going to be posted on the website, but there's not other than putting it in the latest news on the homepage, there's not really a way to make it more prominent than that. And then occasional posts on the town Facebook page, and I think the PD has a page, and a Twitter or an Instagram, I'm not sure. So all of those should be used. And in terms of the posters, I think we were going to do it for the communications committee, but we didn't have time as I was on vacation. But the posters that we make, if you guys want posters for some, like at deliberative sessions coming up, we could also make smaller posters that committee members could come into the town offices, pick up, and put them up in local businesses or elsewhere, or hand them out to residential communities or whatnot. So, and just have the QR code right on it and the link, so people can just open it up right there. But it really, I think, to really get a lot of people doing it, it's more going to be community spread, word of mouth. So I think that's where we got a lot of people. Some committee members on the communications committee just sent it out to people. So, and I did that as well. So that would be, if all of you guys sent it to 10 people, that, maybe it'd be more people than we had fill out our survey.
So, go ahead. I was actually going to ask our select board reps if they would ask the chair of the select board to make an announcement about this at the deliberative session on the 6th, if they wouldn't mind doing that. That would be awesome to at least get that out there. And I will be talking to Alex Lacasse after this meeting, and he's going to do something in the paper for us as well. So those are at least 2 things that came to mind immediately. But go ahead, Darius. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So, Bob, we also have Exeter TV, is that correct? Not we, but the town.
And I would definitely recommend if one of the committee members wanted to do a little Zoom interview, PSA, like, hey, we're doing this survey, here's our goals, here's the time window, which is another thing I would throw in this. You got to put out a deadline, or else people will just be like, I can do it later, and then they'll never do it. But yeah, we could definitely do a little, slideshow ad on our slideshow, and then our weekly report, we could do a little, minute interview about what the survey is, which goes out.
Go ahead.
Along with that, to increase the reach and frequency, we would be able to include the QR code for a limited time period as a banner down below some of the programs, or on any of the presentations that are going out, when you're showing basically between meetings, have it show up as a page. Hey, here's a survey. Boom. Here's the survey last up, so that it either swipes up, down, left, right, whatever it is, on I call the quote dead time in between different programming.
Yeah, I mean, I would basically adapt whatever flyer you have to like a slide. And I haven't ever tested a QR code on a TV, but it's worked on my, computer monitor before. So, right. And obviously, next to the QR code, you'd actually have the written out link, so that people who could just go in and type it in or something. So, yeah, definitely an option.
Super.
Well, there is on the survey, the one thing I would like to see is a rotation of the having ethnicity and race listed there instead of race and ethnicity.
Can you, the actual question, is that what you wanted? Didn't we solve that by doing the race/ethnicity on that question? Did we
That's what we did. Race/ethnicity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see ethnicity first, and then race second.
Oh, okay. That's
So
how it is.
just to confirm, that's not changing the survey. It's just
Right.
putting ethnicity before race in the sentence structure of the question.
Does anybody have a concern with that?
I mean, it's usually just in academics and diversity work, racial and ethnic, but I don't think it really changes anything, but I don't see the reason to change it.
I got the chief has his hand up.
I just want to add, for anyone that wants to go on Exeter TV, I'll go on with them as well.
Oh, that's a great offer. Okay.
So just a quick pulse check. We're at 3:45. That's just a reminder. And I do recall that we did have this long discussion relative to the word of race and ethnicity and their order. And I concur with Emily that it's not needed to change. Leave it as is.
Right, because I believe we voted on that.
We voted on it last time. We had a very long discussion about it. And respectful of everyone's views, and I don't necessarily disagree, but go with what the committee decided.
Right. So this is where we're hopefully, and I can get with Bob kind of off between meetings, but is anybody opposed to the idea that we put a date of February 28th as the end date for this, which may seem aggressive, but my experience with surveys is we want to get them out there. People get excited and then they do them or they don't. Katie and then the chief.
I suggest we make the end date 1 month after whenever we actually disseminate it, just in case it takes us a little bit longer to get from this point to actually posting it than we expect for whatever reason. And also, this is just my own ignorance, but once this gets posted on the town Facebook page or something, is it useful for, like, I'm a member of, Exeter Baby Troop. Should I share it into that group and say, this is for Exeter resident? Are we encouraged to personally share it in whatever groups are relevant?
Go to Molly. My personal opinion, I would say yes. Molly?
I would say yes as well. And I think people are going to need multiple reminders on multiple platforms. If you have an email list, if you regularly text your friends, this is a place to share it.
I would be and this is kind of the point of this board. We all come from different areas. We all have different spheres of influence, so to speak. So any which way that this can be disseminated, and all of us are basically the advocates for it. Say, oh, I got an email from Alexis Simpson. This must mean something. I'm just picking on you, Alexis. And Emily Heath. You have a lot of influence. In my humble opinion, with a great variety of people. Something coming out from you, I think, would carry a lot of influence. All of you have spheres of influence, and I think that's what I think is going to make the difference in this one than maybe a lot of other surveys. Is you've got a personal touch to it, where someone is sending something else, saying, "Hey, I've taken this survey, and I'm part of this committee, and I really think your input would be valuable." Make them know that their input is extremely valuable for the sake of our own police department and their relationship with the police department.
I just wanted to add, if I may, unfortunately, I can't raise my hand. The host can't do that on my version of Zoom. But anyways, reaching out to organizations as well that have big email lists, that could be something like the chamber, or we'll send it out on our TV email list, which I think has, maybe 200 people or something, probably less. But that's something to think of as well. I don't know if either of the apps like that are used for emergency alerts that the PD could use. Is there a way to use those? Because those people have signed up. They've already engaged with the police department. Can you, is it a violation of the agreement they signed up for to send them non-emergency alerts on there? I'm not sure. But, that could be a tool as well, potentially. But I just wouldn't rely too much on social media, because while a lot of people are on there, a lot of people aren't. And a lot of people, at least in our survey, people reported email and word of mouth and town website and stuff as the major ones. Facebook's close behind, but not everybody's on there.
Well, that's good information for us to know that people actually do check emails and they're interested in that kind of thing. But yeah, and that goes in. Yes, Emily.
So one question I'm wondering if we can have, because we want the words of folks who work in town or study here in town, if we could ask Phillips Exeter or Exeter High or Exeter Hospital to send it out to their employee or student lists to get it out that way. I know PEA has all campus emails, and I'm sure the same is true with the SAU and with some of our bigger employers in town as well. And then my other question is, we still have the motion on the table, right, to approve the survey? Or have we?
We already did.
We did, okay.
Yeah, we did both that. I know it seemed confusing, but we did vote it. Was there a question about that? Okay. Alexis?
I was thinking of that too. Since I live here on campus, I was thinking I could reach out, but Matt also is on campus at PEA. But I wonder, we have a few minutes left. Does it make sense to sort of like name some of the major organizations and then who's going to make the contact, both so that we're not double contacting, but also so we make sure we cover all the kind of big ones we can think of? Is that a wise use of time?
Right. That's how you're short of assigning people. It would be great if someone is like, if Matt, if you say I'll do PEA or someone will do the hospital or I'll do the chamber. I mean, I'm happy for people to literally raise their hands and commit to that, so we can then we know who's taking care of whom, so that we don't step over each other. Matt,
I would suggest that get it all finalized, get the QR code. It's easier to approach these people when everything's all ready and lined up. Right. And that way, when you're talking to them, they're like, "Yeah, just send me the link." Right. You've got it. And, you don't have to re-engage the conversation again. Like, "Hey, remember 2-3 weeks ago I told you? Well, we're still waiting on this. I'll get back to you in a week." So, have it all ready. No rush. And it goes to Katie's point of when this thing is finalized and ready to go, a month after it gets launched out the door should be the end date. Right. And everybody will go to the natural places. And Alexis, just so you know, I would prefer if you probably brought it to the academy, just because I'm a staff kid there, not affiliated like you are, representing people in the academy as a rep. So, but I have my own circles of people that, residential and work, and I could probably bring, just speaking ahead, bring it to people at the hospital, but we can all divvy that up. Everybody should think about this, and then the next time we meet, have a list of sphere of influence, to use Ann's word, of who we can touch base with to spread the word.
Or you can individually email me as chair of just a place you want to commit to. I hear your point, Matt. I'm getting to you 1 second, Katie, because I know we're getting short on time. But it wasn't the idea of the presentation, just more like, okay, if Alexis is taking care of PEA, we know she's got PEA. If you're doing, what I mean? That's all I'm looking for, commitment wise. Or if someone wants to, take care of the chamber or the Kiwanis Club or Rotary or whatever, that's all I'm looking for. Is that? And then go ahead, Katie, and then
I was just going to say, is this something we could do on email? Yeah. If we just shoot our commitments to you and then you can tally it and just flag any overlap, and then we don't have to worry about it in the meeting.
I would, that would be great if people could do that between now and the next meeting. Just, hey, I've got a connection here and there, or throw me suggestions out. Just send it to me, and I'll make sure that everybody gets the information. But that way we can find out where we can get things covered. And then what's lacking, what's left open, that would be great. Right, because I'm being sensitive to the time as well. We're down to 6 minutes. Darius, you have your hand raised?
Yes, 3:54, and then we can wrap this up, I believe, in 2 minutes. So the action items that are required, just to confirm, we're going to have the finalized survey. Is that, Bob, are you finalizing the technical aspects of the survey? I tested, I'd like to know that it works. And so...
Yep, I was just going to say it's pretty much all good to go. I'm just going to double check the list that the street list that I street name list that I just got, with one from planning department if they have one from the E911 committee. Just make sure that's good. Put that in, and it's good to go.
And then we would have the generation of the QR code and say, all right, everything's finalized. And so between our next meeting, we could potentially have a launch date for the survey that may coincide with at some point between now and the start of February, and then end 30 calendar days after that. Is that what I'm hearing?
For the end date.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I believe Katie said. I think we all agreed with that.
And then once that's done, we'll have the QR code, and then we'll have the sphere of influence where we're reaching out to. We'll have the link, and we can generate and start to get that out. Maybe at the latest before the next meeting. At the latest would be at the next meeting. We would launch this, but hopefully we can start to move on to goal number 2. So that was it, and I said it in a minute. So
very good.
I just wanted to throw out, if I could, and I know maybe you can't because you don't meet before then probably, but if you did get it out at the deliberative session, you'd probably get 20 to 50 responses that day, and that may be more than half of what you get. So just throwing that out there as from my standpoint, the technical thing, the survey is good to go. Where you disseminate it afterwards, I guess maybe you still need to work on that, but it's ready to launch on the 5th or 6th if you guys needed it. So.
Yeah, to me that is the goal, because even if it's on the website and no one knows about it, that's fine with me that it's sitting there. So I mean, you're right. The deliberative session, where the timing's great for that, and I couldn't agree with you more. We want to capitalize on the fact that however the folks are there, they're there, and the announcement, because people listen to that over and over between now and the next election. So yeah, that'll be the goal. Okay, Darius, and then we got one last thing here.
So if there are no other topics, I do make a motion to adjourn.
Well, the first thing I want to do is, I think we need to vote. We're going to move the item 4 to the next agenda, okay? That's the one thing I didn't get. We don't have to make a motion on that necessarily. We'll just do that. But so we didn't necessarily vote on the tally. Do we need to vote? I'm fine if we don't. There were 30 days from the date, and I may work with Bob behind the scenes or with the committee, if that's okay with you, with everybody, so that we can get this launched for deliberative. If that's okay with you, Bob. Go ahead, Darius.
I make a motion that once the survey is finalized, we do it within 30 days with the goal to have it available by on or before the deliberative session, which is the 6th of February.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute. Matt Carboni.
Aye.
Katie Adams.
Aye.
Harry King.
Aye.
Emily Heath.
Aye.
Alexis Simpson.
Aye.
Darius Thompson.
Aye.
Nisha Johnson.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Very good. Okay. All right. Let's see. We had no correspondence. We will move the item forward to start our next meeting, which will be on February 9th, and we will have Dennis Walker from Seacoast Mental Health. And I want to thank everybody. Do I see a motion for adjournment?
Motion adjourned.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Matt Carboni.
Aye.
Katie Adams.
Aye.
Harry King.
Aye.
Emily Heath.
Aye.
Alexis Simpson.
Aye.
Darius Thompson.